Thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm Kim Sterling. I work at Pantone. I'm the head of global brand partnerships. And I'm going to be leading your presentation today on Color as a Signal, Creative Cult for the Cultural Moment. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to Mark and the team at LeBook for having us. We're excited to be kicking off this wonderful day here with you. And we are going to get started. Before we do that, you've probably already seen the books on your table. Those come from Pantone. They're pretty heavy. This is an FYI. They are our viewpoint trend books. So they include a variety of different trend factors and topics. This year, it's seasonal 2026, all about the creative mind and the mindset as a whole. So take those with you, explore them, and we hope you love them as much as we do. Also, we have a booth around the corner, so be sure to come and chat with us. We have a lot that we want to talk to you about, so be sure to stop by. And we're going to kick off today. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about how cultural forces are really shaping color strategy and creative expression. At Pantone, obviously, we see color as being a forefront to everything that exists across the design workflow. So whether that is looking at how color plays a role in macro trends, like the books you have on your table, or the emotionality that comes through in terms of how trends and the world around us and culture makes us feel, and how that's applied in the design form. So we're going to deep dive into that today. We're going to go on a few color journeys as part of that, and really start to unpack the cultural, technological, and emotional forces shaping today's creative decisions. So let's talk about why color. And not just why color, but why now? We are currently in an era that's navigated by supreme contrast. We're in a state of hyperconnection and deep loneliness. We have our phones and our technology with us at a touch point every single moment of the day. And yet, we know that in this moment, we're also in a state of deep loneliness. It's something that we've heard over and over again in the last few years. So we have to ask ourselves, if we're hyper-connected, what's causing this deep loneliness, and why is it existing? It's also information overload versus emotional undernourishment. So we have access to have any answer that we need in a millisecond of time. And at the same time, we also know that we're not being emotionally nourished. So we have everything that's happening intellectually, but we're missing what's happening in our body, in our physical sense, and in our heart. And in this paradox, color becomes more than style. It becomes a language. It becomes a communication factor. It becomes a connection bridge. Color has emerged as a profound tool for decoding emotion, expressing identity, and signaling values in a world that we know is desperate for resonance. So today I'm going to talk to you about macro trends. At Pantone, we have a team called the Pantone Color Institute. They're the teams that did the books on the table, and they work around the globe. They're specific in color, so they represent different verticals from fashion to design to interiors, and really look at the entire spread of the gamut, everything from our political culture to the interiors, the textures, the materials that we feel from a color sense. And they come together and they span this entire cultural ecosystem to identify different trends, but not just the trend for trend's sake, really taking the trend and breaking it down, cracking it open, and identifying the emotional root of why are we experiencing this trend. And once we know that why, how do we amplify that as a color decoder? And once we have the color decoder, how do we activate that in the design world to use as a connection point and as a connection force? And that's the conversation we're going to have today. So on the next few slides, we're going to go through 5 different macro trends that the Pantone Color Institute team are seeing. And we're going to talk about what those look like. But then more importantly, we're going to talk about how they make us feel and take it into that next step of how they come through in terms of color and color journeys. So here we go. So starting with emotional recalibration. We all have heard the term burnout so many times, like maybe even on a daily basis. And from burnout to boundaries. Once we have burnout, we need to amplify our boundaries so that we're not burning out. But we know that humans, individuals, and consumers want softness. They want restoration, and they want inner alignment. We are looking to recalibrate ourselves emotionally from the inside out so that we're not oversaturated in a world that's asking so many things of us. And we're really looking to how do we do that and what does that look like and how color can play a part in that. Techceptance. So I don't know about you, but I hear about AI multiple times a day at this point, and it's not going anywhere. We are living in an AI and an immersive reality, and they are becoming our everyday tools that we work with. But as that continues to happen, what we know, what we hear, and what we see is that people are craving sensual, analog, and nature-tethered experiences. The more we have this touch point to holding phones, having these structural surfaces that we're attached to, the more we're looking to have that sensual aspect come back into play. Having an analog aspect that we can touch, we can feel, we experience, and having nature-tethered experiences. We are looking to touch grass, go back out in the world, feel the sun, and not just be in the moment of it, but actually be present to it and immerse in it. And grounded living. So you can see us taking this journey, the emotional calibration, the techceptance, and grounded living. We are starting to see this new path. I don't know how you would call it new. I mean, it's been the last few years, but more and more it's being amplified in terms of consumers wanting and taking a slower, more conscious way of living. Color is becoming a tool for reconnecting with nature, ritual, and place. So continuing on and moving into kind of a different ecosystem when we look at trends. Trust erosion, really, really important and specific to brands and how they're showing up. What we know right now is that, especially with some of the newer generations coming in, there is widespread distrust that has put authenticity of how brands are showing up front and center. Color choices must feel considered, not performative. It's not picking a color to be displayed on a retail shelf. It's how the color is going to connect with the human, make them feel, and have a connection to that moment in time. And intergenerational expression, so boomers, Gen Z, and alphas, they all want to feel seen. We've heard this, we've seen this, especially with new platforms like TikTok. There's the peer-to-peer connection. They are having this direct emotional relationship, but they're seeking meaning, not marketing. They don't want to be talked at, they want to be spoken with. And that is a huge difference. And we see color being able to kind of come into that ecosystem, like I said, and really bridge that gap. And we're going to show you how and why. So we went through our macro trends, and I want to talk about the emotional color responses. Because like I said in the beginning, it's not just about identifying the trends. The trend, if we left it there, it would be surface, right? What would we do with it? What does it mean? How do we take it? How do we own it? How do we live it? How do we breathe it? And so now we take the deeper journey to looking at how the trend plays into the emotional sense. So these macro forces aren't just shaping behavior, they're reshaping how we are responding to color. So when we look at calm, right? Feeling calm, being calm, having that sense around us, being in a bubble, we look at desaturated mineral tones that really soothe overstimulation. You're gonna see this come up in terms of one of the creative trend pillars in a color palette that we're going to share with you today on a color journey. Connection, warm neutrals, emotional reds that are rooted in intimacy. We talked about how we're in this state where we're overstimulated, we're putting up boundaries, we really need to protect ourselves, and at the same time, we're looking for more connection, we're looking for more experiences, and we're looking for more of that personal one-on-one intimacy. And we do that through warm neutrals, the reds. When you think about red, you think about love, you think about connection, you think about the depths, right? So really being able to hone into a palette, into a layered complex, we can bring that forward. Joy. We talk a lot about nostalgia right now. That's been coming up over and over again. So the days of watching Nickelodeon and having the Rugrats, these beautiful, bright pops of color that harken back to this kind of nostalgic moment in time for us, that spark joy, that have a moment, have a memory that we can feel in and of ourselves. And curiosity. So in between colors like mauve and iridescent purple, that hold ambiguity. So these are colors that are layered. These are colors that are complex. They're not just single saturated colors. There's more to them. There's a leveling to them. And grounding, earthy, soul-based tones for strength, protection, and those that represent place. But let's take it one step further. So we talked about the aesthetic, we talked about the emotionality, but how do we talk about the strategy? Because we here as creatives and artists and designers really need to take that and figure out the amplification and the application of how to use that in the real world across a variety of our different mediums and verticals. And so with these shifts in emotion, behavior, color is no longer a finishing touch. We see it as a fundamental and foundational strategy. When we think about color, we're thinking about color as an identity. What you stand for is expressed before you even utter a single word, because color in and of itself is a visual language. It doesn't have to be spoken to or spoken about. We see color as an invitation. It's a visual mood board for the emotional experience that you offer. And color, can you guys hear me still? Yeah. Color is a rebellion, a tool to defy aesthetic expectations and express new values. And we see color, I'll try to go amplify as much as I can so you can hear me. Color is a ritual, a way to foster continuity, community, and emotional association. And what we know is that the strongest signals don't shout, they resonate. So let's ask ourselves, what's next in color? And how do we take that color and apply color in action? We've explored the emotional and strategic roles color plays, but let's look at how these ideas come to life. And so we ask ourselves the question, it's not what colors are trending. We've talked about that now, we've talked about that here. It's what feelings do they reflect and what needs are they meeting? So we're gonna start to move into a color journey. So we talked a lot about kind of the emotionality, the application, and I wanna show you what it looks like in the real world through Pantone's eyes. We're gonna go on 4 different color journeys that will showcase kind of the feeling, the palette, and how it shows up across a variety of different verticals, mediums, from fashion to design to VR. So our journey is gonna begin in stillness. In a culture of constant motion, many are running toward quiet, softness, and sensory relief. These are the colors of calm, the ones that hold space instead of taking it. And I want to share with you the Mineral Zen palette. This is the colors of sensory stillness. When we think about Mineral Zen, we think about what represents our desires to come down. They're whisper-toned colors that are pastel in nature, that feel like breathing room. They're visual soft places to land. And they represent a motion of healing, peacefulness, and purifying when we use them. We see them frequently across skincare, architecture, spiritual branding, and wearable tech. And we're gonna dive into each one. So the first one is Sepia Rose, which as you can see is a beautiful dusty rose, and it has a nostalgic smoky pink. So each slide is going to showcase the different applications of where we see this and how it's rooted into its emotional language. Summer Shower is an off-white that has a retro effect that harkens back to a time that was previous to us. Happy Hopes, which I love this name, we see a return of delicious happy yellow with our Happy Hopes color. And these are all colors that we've identified with Pantone in the last few years. And if you look at this color and you look at what's kind of trending and happening in the world around us, we're seeing this come through in our landscape from a cultural standpoint, from an emotional standpoint in butter yellow, right? A very similar color that we've been seeing over and over again this season. Thistle has emerged as a new smoky, sultry mauve, providing a deeper layer to the minerality and what's found in nature. And Aqua Foam is a beautiful celadon green that evokes watery foam as waves cradle the shoreline. Moonstone is a caramel camel inspired by pine wood. So finding colors that are out in the world and really bringing them and identifying them and using them as applications across our products, like you can see here. So if Mineral Zen speaks to our collective craving for calm, what happens when people need not stillness, but escape? When they look to the stars, the mystic, or the imagined, that's where our next journey is going to begin, with romantic survivalism. And the theme, you can probably already take a gander from it, from what you're seeing. It's mystery, it's memory, and it's this beautiful cosmic unknown. It's a world that's something so larger and greater to us. These hues reflect our search for something bigger than just ourselves. It's survival with soul. They're raw, they're emotional, and they're otherworldly. And when we think about them in terms of that emotional play, we're thinking about escapism, enchantment, and duality. We see them show up across fragrances, performance wear, genderless fashion, and digital UX. So in this palette, we see Blue Heron, which is a new humanity. We envision Blue Heron that opens up horizons of space. We see Gray Blue, which is a blue that combines the black and blue with a feeling that we see in the far reaches of space in the deepest depths of the abyss. We see Elderberry, which features a smoky and mysterious look that's ungendered and modern, a hybrid of both pink and gray. The shade is evolved as a colored neutral that is sensible and expresses a sense of character and of beauty. We see Purple Velvet. Purple Velvet becomes the visualization of what we see in space, representing a halo of magic and happiness and hopefulness. And we see Black Oyster, which features a sober and smart minimalism that can be darker, bruised, or reflective. But not everybody is looking up and out. Many are looking down and within, to the earth, to the body, and to what feels elemental and true. So our next journey is going to ground us in what's real. And we have genuine naturalness. And you can see some of this coming back from what we had shared in the macro trends of really wanting to be closer touch point to earth with technology all around us, being back to nature. With this, we see raw, earthbound resilience. Nature isn't just inspiration, it's always been our survival. These hues help us feel rooted, real, and protected. They carry the weights of ancestral memory and ecological ethics. They're grounding, they have integrity, they have strength attached to them. And for design applications, we see this up and rising across sustainable packaging, outerwear, CPG, and utilitarian design. So when we look at the colors, we see olivine, which I love personally, this name, it's one of my favorites. It's a grayish tinted green that's powerful and impenetrable. We see desert sage. Herbal and healthy desert sage is sophisticated, but has an adventurous play. And we see golden cypress, which is a little strange and disruptive. It's a mossy and chlorophyll-based green, and it's the brightest of the greens that represents this palette. And perch, so we see metallic pine that has a camouflage appearance that feels, as you can see from some of the cars here, there's an indestructible nature to it. You can think almost tank-like. And gadget gray, it's a dark metallic gray with a powerful strength that looks mysterious and is severe in character. And Fort Knox, an organic gold tone with brass green infusions. And finally, for those who reject softness and restraint entirely, there's a new aesthetic, one that's bold and that feels unapologetic. So let's journey to our next color palette that's full of thrill, speed, and adventure. And that's active glam. And the theme is hypervisibility, but with purpose. And our narrative is these aren't colors that whisper, they shout. They're bold, they're energizing, they are seen on our streets and our screens, and they blend sport, spectacle, and rebellion. They're exhilarating, they have risk attached to them, they make us feel a certain way, we have the danger aspect, and they seek attention. In terms of design applications, we see them in esports, graphics, performance wear, and a lot of Gen Z branding that's coming in and starting to use the application of these colors. So we have cherry tomato, which is a red and orange that fuses together to create a look that is dynamic and active. We have orange tiger, which is an extreme sport-inspired, which is fast and furious. Evening primrose, a highly visual and individualistic green that is acidic and synthetic in appearance that you can't avoid. And we have also gadget gray that's being applied to two different palettes that we have here, so you can see different applications and how they make you feel. But this is a steady color that becomes the core base to be used with other colors, harmony colors, complementary colors. Metallic gadget gray is, in this form, indestructible. So when we think with designing with color, we think about designing with color intention. Before committing to a palette, we pause. Because we don't look at color in terms of how it looks, we think about how it lands. And so these are some prompts that we as Pantone use when we're starting to do color work or color strategy, color development, color narratives, and we ask ourselves. We do a lot of work with brands, and we work with them to really pinpoint these questions so that we're understanding how they want to show up, who they're showing up to, and what they want to communicate. So we wanted to share these with you so you can kind of see some of the inner back-end workings of how we're operating and how we're filtering our color stories. So we ask ourselves, what emotional frequency does this color communicate? Does this palette deepen the story or does it dilute it? If we put this palette out into the world, is it going to be able to tell the story that we're going to tell, or is it going to take over the story that we want to tell? Are we leading with instinct, intention, or aesthetic habit? What would this palette feel like if it were a material, a song, or a memory? And how will this color choice evolve, and will it still hold its meaning? So when we think about production form, we have color that's being applied in a variety of different mediums. Is the color going to be able to communicate the essence of what its intention is all the way through the entire design workflow into production and beyond when it lands in the consumer's hands for a feeling, for that connection point? And so we see color that's not decoration, it's direction. And in an era where visual is a signal, color becomes our most intuitive communicator. It is our connector, it is our bridge. It tells the truth before we say a single word. It's how we build resonance, identity, and connection. And we know that the future belongs to brands who understand that color is not just a trend, but is an emotional leader. And when you guys go back to your palette, ask not what looks good, but ask what feels true. So we're going to pause there, and I wanted to take some time to answer any questions that you have for Pantone about the topics that we talked about what's kind of coming up next in kind of the color world, but really kind of give this time to you to own the dialogue. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So obviously there are different trends every year.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a great question. So for those that couldn't hear, she asked, there's trends that are coming out every year. Are we predicting new trends that are coming? And we do. So right now, you all have the viewpoint that's on the book. That's spring, summer 2026. But our team right now is working on the back end production of 2027. So we are looking at what's happening in the world around us in a variety of different ways. And like I mentioned, it's not what's happening in fashion, what's happening in design, what's happening across kind of materials and texture elements. It's what's happening across our political landscape, what's happening across our consumer behavior purchase decisions, and how do we take all this data and look at it across the board and then identify what are the trends, how are they making us feel, and what do we need more of, and how do we give that response in the form of our books, in the form of our trends, to all of you. So, any other questions? Go ahead.
There was a lot of inspiring color in your presentation. Is there a way to get a copy of the presentation?
Yes, I can definitely work with the LeBook team and see about how we get that kind of distributed to you all. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Go ahead.
How will all of these numbers translate across all of the different types of books, whether it's a print book, a fabric book? Will they be the same numbers?
Yes, that's a great question. So we have different colors for different properties. So we have an entire fashion, home, and interiors line and specific color palette guides that are dedicated to that world. They have different numbers than our graphics books and our graphics colors do. So they're different, but we have an app called Pantone Connect. So if you see a color that you like, you can input it into Pantone Connect, and it could show you where you can find that across the other different properties, whether you're looking for something in plastics, you're looking for something in fashion, material, textures, etc.
But is this for print? Are these,
I can't see what you're looking at.
are these
but
for, are these for print?
I'll have to look at the numbers, but if you come to our booth, we can, kind of show you the full process and the workflow.
Perfect,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Out of all the things you spoke about, what do you think is the biggest takeaway that we should all go home with?
Okay, so I hope that you got it from kind of what I'm sharing, but it really is that color is not just for color's sake. Color is a visual language. Color communicates, and the more we think about putting that into our practices, and it does take a little bit more work. It's not applying colors that we like or colors that, kind of what makes us feel. It's really thinking about it in a deeper lens and in a filtered sense. So how is this color going to show up? How is it going to make somebody feel? Why? Why is it going to make somebody feel a certain way? How do we pull that back to some of the trend work that we're seeing, that we're experiencing, that we're doing? You don't need Pantone. I mean, of course, we'd love you to have Pantone, but all of you have the ability to do that too, to really look at the landscape of the world and put it into a color filter so that when we're using color, it's communicating. It's not just for aesthetic sake. That was a great question. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, we have a booth around the corner, so please come and chat with us. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to dive deeper into these conversations. If you want to get in contact with us, feel free to take the QR code outside of this room, and we're more than happy to build our relationships. And we so appreciate you and the time that you've spent here with us today. So thank you so much.